to be up here in front of people sharing such hard things to share that you've gone through, but thank you, because I'm sure it's touched a lot of people. And you never know who really needed to hear that stuff. So thank you for being brave enough to share it. I know it takes guts to do that, you guys. So we have another speaker who is on fire. I can't wait for her to talk to you. We've had a couple of little technical difficulties, so the slides that are accompanying some things you won't see, but really, is it that big of a deal? I don't think it is. You guys, are you cool with it? Okay, good. Sometimes shoes doesn't go exactly as you planned, so you just got to improvise. So we're going to bring up Kelli, and she's going to share her story. Woo! And we are so excited to have her. So welcome to the Hey everyone, I'm Kelli France, and I'm a mom of 4. And this past summer, one of our mottos to kind of survive all my kids being home from school was, and it was mostly for me, was that we can do hard things. And so I wanted to do a post about it in the summer, and so I took pictures of myself working out and got out my Word Swag app, and I put a little quote over the picture, and it said something like, "We can do hard things." And I had a picture of it, but basically it was me, I was squatting, and it said, "We can do hard things." And I'm really, really glad that I had the sense to not post that before it went viral for all the wrong reasons. But I want to talk to you guys today about doing hard things. And let me start by just sharing my story on why I became a Beachbody coach. And warning, I might ugly cry, because it was a hard thing to go through. So the summer, two years ago, in the summer of 2014, it was the hardest summer of my life. My husband and I ran a business together, and it was doing well, but we kind of got a sucker punch and ended up having to pay $15,000 in taxes. And it wiped out all our savings, and so my husband began looking for a second job. And he is a very humble man. He has a law degree, but he was willing to go find another job just to make ends meet. And so he started delivering pizzas on the side. And so it was hard because he was gone a lot at night, and we were busting butt during the day trying to figure out what to do. We couldn't even afford groceries. Our church had to help us pay for groceries, and they weren't even the good kind. They were like crappy hot dogs and mac and cheese and stuff like that. And it sucked, so we were eating poorly. I remember one day my son telling me, "Hey mom, I need shoes, and I need new shoes. It might have holes in them." And I was like, "I'm sorry, we can't afford shoes." And that is heartbreaking to tell your kid. And my husband and I fought a lot because, people say money isn't everything, but when you don't have it, it is. And we were struggling in every aspect of my life. And I remember one night we were sleeping in the basement on our air mattress because we were trying not to use the air conditioning. And I remember one night laying in bed, and I wanted to end my life. I hated my life. And I was having suicidal thoughts, and I was very depressed. And we had to cancel some of our vacations that we had planned that summer. And it was so hard because we were going to go with some friends, and I had to tell them, "I'm sorry, we can't go." And they didn't understand why. They didn't understand how bad things were, and it was just heartbreaking. I remember one day going to the grocery store. It was $16. It was back to school time, and I wanted to buy my kids some stuff for their school lunches that the church couldn't provide for us. So I brought my $16 cash to the grocery store, and I had my 2-year-old bawling in the grocery cart because that's what toddlers do. And I was at the checkout line, which I'm sure you all have checkout line stories with kids, right? But I was at the checkout line, he's bawling, and I'm trying to make it fit in that $16 budget, and I'm taking stuff back, and I just left, and I thought, no more, no more. And so, my coach invited me to a sneak peek in the coaching group using a Facebook event, by the way. Those do work. And I thought, you know what? My husband should look into this. He loves fitness. So I was like, you should look into this as a better second job than delivering pizzas. Because, by the way, he even had to deliver pizzas on 4th of July. So while we were watching fireworks, he was delivering pizzas. And so I wanted him to have a better option. So I'm like, you should do this. You love fitness. Like, that's your thing. And so he looked into it. We started watching some of the videos in the sneak peek group. And we were like, you know, the income opportunity is like amazing. There's so much potential here. And so he decided to try it. He took a leap of faith and he decided to try it. Now me, on the other hand, I was not going to coach because I love cookies. And I was too busy. I had 4 kids and I ran a photography business along with our online photography magazine in school. So there was no way I was going to take that on. But in order to get him to enroll, I bought a challenge pack and signed up as a coach under him. And then I knew, you guys, that I needed to work out. I knew I needed the endorphins to feel better about myself, to get out of that dark hole of depression that I was feeling. I've exercised in the past. You know, it's been something I've always done as a teenager, and you know, I used to teach like ghetto aerobics classes at the church. I wasn't a pro or anything, but that was my way of forcing myself to be accountable, right? So I knew, that if I'm getting ahead of myself. So I bought this PIO challenge pack, right? And I posted it on Instagram and Facebook. I knew I needed to work out, right? So I bought it, I posted it on Instagram and Facebook, and people were like, what is this? What are you doing? And I was like, wait, maybe people want to join me on my journey. And that's when I realized, hey, this could be like the aerobics classes that I used to teach. This could be that forced accountability that I so desperately needed. Because I tried going to the gym. I tried doing jazzercise. I tried running. You know, I was a runner. And I never really got results from that because it was too time-consuming. I was a busy mom. So I started doing the workouts from home, and I started a challenge group, and the rest is history. I just became obsessed. I became obsessed with coaching. I loved the way I felt. I loved how fulfilling it was to help other people change their bodies, because when you change your body, you change your life. And so it's been so amazing. So for the past 2 years, you know, I worked my booty off. And I worked 4 hours a day, every day, for the past 2 years, Monday through Friday. And I worked out at least 5 days a week for the past 2 years. And it's been such a huge blessing. And now I'm making around $50,000 a year, working part-time hours. And we can afford groceries, we can afford food, and it's so amazing. And I've been able to take my family on the Success Club cruise. I took my entire family of 6 on that cruise, and that was like the best week of my life. We never would have been able to travel like that if it weren't for coaching. So I'm so grateful. And I was able to change my body. I was able to transform my body and lose. With PIO, I lost 11 pounds and 11 inches with that first program I did. And I share these things with you guys not to impress you, but to impress upon you that you too can do hard things. And that those hard things will pay off with consistency over time. And so I want to share 2 tips for doing hard things. And those 2 tips are to get off your butt and get off your other butt, this butt. And so I'm going to just talk really quick about each of these things. The first is to get off this butt. And many of us, including of being perfect. We become what I call perfectionist procrastinators, where we want to do it right or not at all. And I'm totally that way. My husband jokes that like it's all or nothing with me. He's like, when you turn on the heat, it's like I blast it either one way or it's like 60 degrees in the car blasting air conditioning. Like there's no middle for me. But I want to recommend the advice that my mom gave to me, and that was to start sloppy, because 80% is better than 0%. So when I first started, I didn't have a clue what I was doing as a coach, but I just started doing. And I didn't know what to say to people. I didn't have scripts, but I started talking to people. I started talking to them, or to the girl that was who I was a couple months before I started coaching. That girl that desperately needed to get fit. I always say that I work out for vanity, or for sanity, not vanity. I work out for sanity, not vanity. But yeah, so start sloppy and fake it till you make it by imitating successful coaches. So my coach, I was so lucky to have Micah Folston as my coach, and she's been in the top 10. She's an amazing leader, and so when she told me to do something, I just did it. And I copied her, and she would say, you need to hit Success Club. I remember that first month, I didn't even know what the crap that was. But she said, you need to hit Success Club, and I'm like, what is that? Okay. And so I hit Success Club, and she'd say, you need to get 5 people into the sneak peek into coaching group. And so I'd say, okay, and I'd put 5 people in the sneak peek into coaching group. She'd say, you need to host an eating clean group, and I'd say, okay, and I would host one. I hustled and I worked hard, and often a lot of my coaches feel like they need to know everything before they do everything, and that's not the case. I feel like you learn best by doing. When you just jump in there, you're going to figure it out on the way, and you're going to learn more than you ever would from watching some YouTube videos, right? So the next thing is to get off this butt, right? This is the harder butt to get off of. And but before you can get off your butt, you have to define it. So I'm going to talk about 3 different types of butts. The first are, let me tell you the 3 and then we'll talk about each one. So there's butt fears, there's butt excuses, and butt insecurities. So butt fears sound a little bit like this. And by the way, a lot of this part of my talk is from the book called Get Off Your Butt. It's on Audible. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. So butt fears sound a little bit like this. They say, but what if I fail? But what if I look bad? But what if I disappoint everyone? And they usually start it with the words, what if? And honestly, some of these fears entered my head whenever I thought about speaking with you guys today. But those are fear-based thoughts, and we all know that fear stands for false experiences appearing real. So when those thoughts come up, we should ask ourselves 2 questions. What's the worst that could happen? And what's the best that could happen? So when I ask myself, what's the worst that could happen with giving this presentation? Maybe you guys would throw tomatoes and boo me off the stage, but I think eventually we'd all forget about it, right? And then what's the best that could happen? Maybe I could inspire someone and help someone to change their life. And when you think about it that way, it usually makes it worth it, right? So when you ask yourself these questions, you'll probably realize what Melanie Mitro said in one of her YouTube videos, that when you take a leap of faith, you won't die. You're not going to die. All right, let's talk about... Hang on, I lost my place. excuses. And we all have them, right? These sound like, but there's no time, but I don't know enough people, but I don't have a powerful story or transformation. And they're based on an imaginary lack of resources. They get us out of doing things that we actually don't really want to do. And the excuse is never the real reason behind the inaction. It's just a cover-up for something that we're unwilling to face up to. It masks our true feelings. I love this quote by Jen Sincero. She says, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. I truly believe that. So how do we get off those but excuses, right? We have to really be 100% honest with ourselves and ask ourselves if it's truly a priority for us. Because, it's not really about having time, it's about making time. So you have to, and then the second question to ask yourself is, what will happen in the future if I don't change? Because if you do what you've always done, you will be what you've always been. So if it frustrates you, then change it. And then the third type of but is but insecurities. And they sound a little bit like this. But I'm not good enough. But I'm not attractive enough. But I'm not talented enough. They usually include the word enough in them. And before we go on, I want to tell you that you are enough. But guess what? It doesn't matter what I tell you. It doesn't matter if I believe in you. It matters what you tell you and if you believe in you. That's why self-talk is so incredibly important. I had my coaches rate their confidence on a scale of 1 to 10, and I found something very, very interesting. Those coaches who had the highest number tended to also have the highest amount of success in coaching. So I want to ask you a question. Are you a mean girl or a bully? Now I bet you're thinking, well, no, I'm not. But sometimes we are mean girls or bullies to ourselves. And because our self-talk can be so belittling, but we would never allow anyone to talk to our children or our best friends this way, and yet we talk to ourselves that way. We need to learn to stand up for ourselves, to ourselves. So I want you to, so if you're feeling inadequate, hold up a different mirror. Try to see yourself through the reflection of your strengths. Gary Vaynerchuk says, whether you're 9 or 90, stop trying to fix the things you're bad at and focus on the things you're good at. So I want you to think of negative self-talk like birds in your brain, okay? They kind of fly through your brain, right? I mean, it's natural. We all have those negative thoughts, that negative self-talk, okay? That's a natural thing. But when they fly through your brain, don't let them build a nest. Don't let them stay. Don't let them create a family and get bigger, right? Give those birds the bird and let them fly away. Letting negative self-talk fly away and replacing it with positive self-talk will help you learn to fly, which stands for finally loving yourself. So to recap, we need to get off our butt fears, our butt excuses, and our butt insecurities. The longer we sit on them, the more they continue to grow and the weaker we get. The thing about our butts is that no one can get off them but ourselves. So getting off our butt and our other butt is the key to doing hard things and seeing success. Thank you.